Hello, friends. Today I am your storyteller. I hope you will enjoy this story. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so that we can receive your love and support. Now let's begin the story. I didn't think a dumb tweet could actually change anything about my life. At least not in Wexford, Ohio, a town so small you could drive from one end to the other in 15 minutes. People here didn't care about social media, or at least that's what I told myself. But I was wrong. I was dead wrong. My name's Noah Alvarez. I'm 23, and for the last 2 years, I've been working nights at a Dunkin Donuts off Route 61, right across from an abandoned strip mall with more broken windows than working lights. The place never closed, which meant someone had to be there at 3 a.m. when truckers rolled in, drunk college kids stumbled out of Ubers, or a lonely old man wanted coffee just to remind himself he wasn't invisible. That someone was usually me. I wasn't supposed to end up here. I wanted to go to culinary school, learn pastry, open a small bakery someday. But when my mom died of a heart attack in 2020, I dropped out of community college to keep the bills paid. My dad wasn't around. It was just me and my little sister Camilla, who was 16 then. Rent didn't wait for grief, so I took the only job that would hire me without a degree or experience. Dunkin'. I told myself it would be temporary. But you'd be surprised how quickly temporary can turn permanent when every month you're one paycheck away from losing your apartment. I lived quiet, worked nights, came home, ate cheap microwave meals, scrolled social media half asleep. I hated Twitter but couldn't stop using it, like scratching at a mosquito bite until it bled. You know it's making things worse, but you keep doing it. I used to tweet random jokes or dumb takes. Nothing serious. Hardly anyone followed me. I thought it didn't matter, until the night it did. It started stupid, like these things always do. There was a thread trending, unpopular music opinions. Thousands of people were posting spicy takes for clout. I should have just scrolled. Instead, I typed something. Boy bands today are just fast food, flashy packaging, no substance, manufactured junk for kids. It wasn't even about anyone in particular, just me venting. But in hindsight, it was the worst possible thing I could have posted, because people decided I meant one band, the biggest fandom online, BTS. At first, it was just a few replies. You don't know what you're talking about. Shut up, hater. I rolled my eyes, muted notifications, went back to glazing donuts. But when I checked my phone on break around 4 a.m., I had over 700 mentions. My chest went cold. Thousands of replies. People furious, quote tweets calling me an idiot, death threats, photoshopped memes of my profile picture with clown makeup. One person posted, "Find this guy." I panicked, locked my account, deleted the tweet, then deleted the whole profile. That would have been the end of it, I thought. Twitter drama never lasted more than a day, but it wasn't the end. A week passed. Nothing happened in real life. Nobody at work mentioned it. My coworkers didn't seem like the type to even know what Twitter was. There was Marta, the night manager in her 40s, who mostly chain smoked outside and didn't care what you did as long as you kept the fryers clean. And Deshaun, who stacked napkins while blasting old school hip hop on his phone. Neither of them struck me as K-pop stans. I started to relax, but I missed talking to people online. So I tried something new, a site called Omegle, video chats with strangers. If someone bored you, you skipped. Low stakes, anonymous. No followers, no mob, just faces. The first night was fine. I talked to a kid in Chile about horror movies. A girl in Canada showed me her cat. A guy strummed a guitar. It was almost wholesome. The second night changed everything. I was on break, sitting on the metal stool in Dunkin's back kitchen, sipping cold brew while the fryer hissed behind me. It was just past 3 a.m., the dead hour. I opened Omegle on my beat-up laptop. A few skips later, a new face appeared. She looked my age, maybe 22. Asian, long black hair, pastel pink hoodie. Behind her, a room lit by fairy lights, posters everywhere. BTS. A giant teddy bear sat in her lap. She smiled politely. We started small talk. Favorite foods, movies. She asked about my job, and I told her I work nights at Dunkin. She laughed and asked, What's the weirdest customer you ever had? I was mid-story about a drunk guy asking for sushi when she tilted her head and asked, "Wait, are you Noah underscore R47? My stomach dropped. That was my old Twitter handle, the one tied to the deleted account. I froze. No. Don't know what you mean." Her smile faded. Her eyes didn't blink. Cold. "I know what you said about them," she whispered. I slammed the laptop shut so hard it nearly cracked. My pulse pounded. How could she know? I never used my real name on Twitter. Then I realized. On the wall behind me hung a laminated Wexford Culinary School banner, a local program I'd once applied to. It was visible on my webcam. If she froze the frame, she knew where I was. I didn't sleep that day, kept checking locks, listening for footsteps in the hall, but nothing happened, not then. 3 nights later, I was working alone. Marta left early with a migraine. Deshawn called out. Around 2:40 a.m., while prepping glaze, I heard glass shatter. A brick flew through the front window, skidding across the tile floor. I ducked behind the counter, ears ringing. When I crept out, the store was empty, just me. I picked up the brick. Words scrawled in black Sharpie, BTS forever. I called the cops. They came, shrugged, filed a report. One officer asked, "You got any enemies?" I didn't answer. The next night, it got worse. A group of 6 people stood outside Dunkin's windows. They weren't ordering. They were dancing. A full synchronized routine to a BTS song. In the center was the girl from Omaglu. Her eyes never left mine through the glass. When the song ended, they all made a slashing motion across their throats. Then walked away. I quit my shift early. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. After that, it snowballed. Flyers went up on telephone poles near the college campus. My face next to my deleted tweet, red X's over my eyes. Flash mobs started showing up in the cafeteria, outside my apartment building. Always the same girl in the center. Always that unblinking stare. Campus security told me, unless they touch you, nothing we can do. So I started carrying pepper spray, and pathetically I bought a BTS enamel pin. Wore it everywhere like garlic against vampires. For a while it worked. Nobody bothered me in person. Until one night. It was 2:17 a.m. I woke to scratching at my apartment door. At first I thought it was rats. Then the knob rattled. Slow. Intentional. Whispers outside. Laughter. Then the metallic click of a lockpick. My chest seized. I shouted, "Well, go away!" More laughter. I shoved my dresser in front of the door. Silence. Then, a thud behind me. I spun. My bedroom window, open. Figures climbing through one by one. 4 of them in black hoodies. Faces shadowed. One stepped forward. Dyed pink hair poked out. It was her, the girl from Omegle. She held a lighter, flicked it on. The tiny flame danced, reflecting in her wide eyes. "Say it," she whispered. I was trembling so hard I thought I'd collapse. I was wrong. I love BTS. Their music is amazing. Their dancing is incredible. She smiled, extinguished the lighter. The group climbed back out, silent as shadows. I collapsed on the floor, gasping, paralyzed. That was 3 months ago. No one's come back since. I still wear the pin, still look over my shoulder every night after work. I don't talk about it anymore. I don't post online. I deleted everything. I've learned one thing. Don't mess with people who have more passion than boundaries, especially if they know where you live. Story 2. I was 15 the year it happened, just a quiet sophomore at Maplewood High. If you've never been to Maplewood, Ohio, you're not missing much. It's one of those small Midwest towns you can drive through in 10 minutes. Strip malls, a faded bowling alley, 3 churches, and a Dunkin Donuts that somehow became the unofficial town square for anyone under 25. I wasn't popular. I wasn't a jock. I wasn't even the kind of kid who got noticed enough to be bullied. My life was small: school, video games, and my 3 closest friends. Chris Warren, the loud one, always cracking jokes to cover how anxious he really was. Evan Blake, the cautious one, straight-A student who constantly worried we'd get caught whenever we bent the rules. Marcus Hall, The wild card, impulsive, stubborn, and the reason we ended up in trouble more times than I can count. We all lived in the same cul-de-sac at the edge of town. Our parents were friends, which meant we'd been thrown together since we were toddlers, and somewhere along the way, we stuck. By high school, people called us the Maplewood Four. Not because we were cool, but because you never saw one of us without the others. It was late October, the weekend before Halloween, when everything changed. The air had gone sharp with cold, and the trees had already dropped most of their leaves. Maplewood only had two big fall traditions: the homecoming football game and Granger's Fall Maze, a massive corn maze and pumpkin patch on the edge of town. Families loved it during the day: hay rides, cider stands, kids running around with painted faces. But at night it was supposed to be locked up tight. Supposed to be. That Friday night after the football game, Marcus got the idea. We'd gone to the game like everyone else, not because we cared about football, but because that's where the entire school would be. The bleachers were packed, music blasting from the band, parents bundled in blankets. We lasted maybe a quarter before Chris groaned. "Chris, I swear, if I hear one more person scream, 'Go Maplewood,' I'm putting myself in a coma." Marcus: "Then let's bounce." Dunkin's open, Evan. "My mom thinks I'm here until at least 10. Me: "It's already 9:40. Close enough, that was how it always went. Marcus pushed, Chris laughed, Evan resisted, and I floated somewhere in between, going along because the idea of splitting off felt worse than the trouble we might get into. We walked. Maplewood High was about half an hour from downtown, where the Dunkin sat on the corner of Birch and 7th Street. The night had that perfect hoodie weather vibe. You could see your breath, but it wasn't unbearable. The sidewalks were slick with fallen leaves, and you could hear the crickets under the streetlights. When we finally reached Dunkin, the parking lot was empty. That should have been our first clue. Even at night, there were always a couple cars, late shift workers grabbing coffee, delivery trucks idling, or teens killing time. But tonight, nothing. The lights were on. The neon open sign glowed, but the windows looked still. Too still. Evan: "Where's everybody?" Marcus: "Short-staffed, maybe. Who cares? I just want a coffee." He pulled the glass door open. The bell above jingled. Silence. The store was spotless, tables wiped, pastry case fully stocked, coffee machines humming, but no employees, no chatter, no sound at all except the faint buzz of fluorescent lights. Chris tried to lighten the mood. Chris: "Dude, this feels like the start of a horror movie. We're about to get chopped up by a donut-loving psycho." Marcus: "Relax. Somebody's probably in the back." He leaned over the counter and shouted. Marcus: "Yo! You guys open?" No answer. That's when I noticed it. A smear on the swinging door that led into the kitchen. Dark, red, about the size of a hand. My stomach nodded. Me: "Guys, look." All three turned. The joking stopped. Evan: "That's jelly." Has to be Chris. "Yeah, jelly. From the jelly donuts in the completely full pastry case." Even Marcus didn't push back this time. For once, he didn't have a cocky remark. He just shifted uncomfortably, hands in his hoodie pocket. Then he said it, the thing that changed the night. Marcus: "Granger's Maze is right across the lot. Let's check it out. Across from Dunkin, past a cracked asphalt lot, sat Granger's farm." By day it was bright and welcoming. By night it was a black mass of corn and shadows. The wooden arch at the maze entrance had a faded sign. Granger's Corn Maze, last entry 8 p.m. It was nearly midnight. Evan: "No way. We're not doing this, Marcus. Come on, 5 minutes." "Just to the first turn, Chris. 5 minutes, and if Leatherface shows up, I'm blaming you." I should have backed Evan. I should have said no. But the thought of being the only one too scared to go in made my chest tighten, so I followed. The wooden gate was unlocked. We stepped inside. The corn was 10 feet tall, thick and brittle in the wind. The dirt path crunched under our sneakers. Here and there, hay bales leaned against the stalks, leftover from the daytime setup. The air was colder in there, damp somehow, like the maze itself breathed differently than the open night. We started down the path together. At first it felt stupid. just four kids walking through corn. But the deeper we went, the quieter it got. The crickets faded. The wind seemed to hush. Even our footsteps felt muffled. Then came the first sound. Crunch. Not us. Something else. Off to the right, in the stalks. We all froze. Chris. Marcus, quit screwing around. Marcus. It's not me. Evan. Guys, I don't like this. The sound came again. Slow. Deliberate. Like someone carefully stepping between the stalks, keeping pace. I whispered. Me. Let's turn back. But Marcus was already moving forward, jaw set. Then a voice. Low, raspy, male voice. You're not supposed to be here. I swear it came from everywhere at once. Behind us, beside us, inside our skulls. Evan clutched my arm so hard it hurt. Chris muttered, "Nope, nope, nope." And then we saw him. He stepped onto the path 30 feet behind us. Tall, broad-shouldered, torn flannel, dirty jeans. His face half-shadowed, but his eyes were wide, unblinking, and his mouth curled into a smile that didn't belong on a human face. He didn't run, he just walked. One heavy step at a time, me shaking. Run! We bolted. The maze twisted in every direction. Left, right, straight, left again. We sprinted blindly, our lungs burning, sneakers slamming dirt. But every time we slowed, we heard it. Crunch, deliberate, calm, like he knew we couldn't escape. We stopped once to catch our breath, bent over, gasping. That's when Chris whispered what I was already thinking. Chris, what if there's more than one? Before I could answer, a scream tore through the maze. Marcus's scream, raw, terrified, not playful, not human-sounding. We ran toward it, crashing through stalks until we found another path. And there he was, Marcus, stumbling toward us, face white, eyes wild. Marcus, sobbing. He grabbed Evan. But Evan wasn't there, just Marcus, shaking. We didn't wait. We didn't think. We just ran. The glow of the road appeared ahead like salvation. We sprinted harder than we ever had in our lives, burst through the last row of corn, vaulted the wooden fence, and landed on asphalt. We didn't stop until we were 3 blocks away, crouched behind a stranger's car, gasping for breath. Evan never came out. We called the cops, told them everything. They searched the maze until dawn. They found no man, no blood, no Evan. But in the dead center of the maze, in a perfect circle of flattened corn, they found his phone, smashed. Granger's farm shut down that week. The maze never reopened. Evan's family moved away the following spring. Officially, the police called it a runaway. But I know better. We all do. Because sometimes when I pass that shuttered Dunkin Donuts at night, I swear I hear it again. Crunch, crunch, slow, deliberate, waiting. Story 3. I was never what people call a morning person. I don't say that in the cute coffee mug slogan way. I mean it in the sense that mornings always felt like punishment to me. My brain doesn't fully wake up until at least 10 a.m. But life doesn't really care about our natural rhythms. Rent doesn't care. Bills don't care. Employers definitely don't care. My name's Maya Jennings. I'm 26 years old, and for the past year, I've been living in a cramped 1-bedroom apartment in Riverton, Pennsylvania. Riverton isn't the kind of city that makes the news. It's not glamorous or particularly historic. It's just a place. Old neighborhoods stitched together with cracked asphalt, half-finished strip malls, and abandoned houses that nobody's bothered to tear down. The kind of place where the train tracks slice through the middle, and you can tell exactly which side has money and which side doesn't. I ended up on the side without. After my dad passed 3 years ago, my mom sold our family house in Erie and moved in with my aunt in Florida. I didn't want to go. I had a few friends in Riverton from college, and I told myself I could make it work here. Find a job, save up, eventually move to Philly or Pittsburgh. Except eventually has a way of stretching on. Right now, I work the opening shift at Dunkin Donuts on Oakwood Avenue. It's not glamorous, but it's steady, and in Riverton, steady is a small miracle. We open at 5:30 a.m., which means I have to leave my apartment at around 4:45 to get there on time. The walk's about 35 minutes if I stick to the sidewalks. But there's a shortcut through a strip of woods locals call the Grove. It cuts 10 minutes off the walk, and when you're desperate for a little extra sleep, 10 minutes feels like gold. Yeah, I know how it sounds. A young woman walking through the woods alone in the dark. Every warning sign, right? But these aren't deep woods, just a narrow path, littered with beer cans and cigarette butts, carved between Oakwood's backyards and the strip mall where Dunkin sits. Everyone in Riverton has cut through them at some point. High school kids sneak in there to drink. Couples smoke weed there. Joggers use it in daylight. For me, it was just a shortcut, a way to claw back 10 minutes of sleep before pouring coffee for strangers. And for almost a year, it was fine, until November 12th of last year. That morning, my phone alarm dragged me out of a dream at 4:15. I smacked it off and sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the peeling paint of my bedroom wall. My breath came out in pale mist. It was that cold. The radiator in my apartment hadn't worked right since October, and the landlord wasn't answering texts. I pulled on black jeans, my Dunkin hoodie, and a beanie to hide my hair. Dry shampoo was doing more work than actual showers at that point. As I locked up, I muttered to myself, "Another day, another dozen bagels." That's a habit of mine, talking out loud when I'm nervous or tired. It makes silence easier. The streets of Riverton were dead quiet that early. Street lamps flickered, porch lights clicked on when I passed. The air stung my hands and I cursed myself for forgetting gloves again. I walked fast, head down. By the time I reached the chain link opening at the end of Marlowe Street, I hesitated. The Grove stretched out in front of me, a black tunnel of trees. I could take the long way, more light, more cars. But I was exhausted, and my shift manager would chew me out if I was late again. "Shortcut it is," I whispered, ducking through the opening. At first it was just the usual. Gravel crunching under my boots, my breath puffing white, the faint hum of traffic from Oakwood Avenue. I pulled one earbud out, like I always did in the Grove, a safety thing. My mom drilled it into me. Always keep one ear open. But that morning, it was too quiet. No rustle of squirrels, no wind in the branches, just me, moving forward like I'd stepped inside some sealed-off bubble. Halfway through, I got the feeling, that primal, ancient sensation that you're not alone, that you're being watched. I stopped walking, slowly turned. The path behind me was empty. No joggers, no dog walkers, just trees. "Get a grip, Maya," I muttered. "You're tired. You're cold." "Keep moving," I did. But then I heard it. Footsteps. At first, I thought it was an echo of mine. But no. These were offbeat, 1/2 second behind me. I froze. The footsteps stopped too. I started walking again, slower this time. The steps continued. I glanced over my shoulder. Nothing. I slid my hand into my bag and curled it around the canister of pepper spray my cousin had given me for Christmas. My heart thudded against my ribs. "Hello," I called out, my voice cracking. "Is someone there?" Silence. I picked up my pace. The steps picked up too. Quicker now, closer. My pulse went wild. Just ahead, the rotten wooden bench came into view. Nobody sat on it. At least, I thought nobody did. For the briefest second, I swear I saw a figure hunched there, shoulders bent, head low. I blinked. It was gone. Just moss and splinters. "Not funny," I hissed under my breath, clutching the spray tighter. The footsteps behind me quickened. I broke into a jog. The trees thinned. I could see the faint pink glow of the Dunkin sign beyond the plaza. Relief surged through me until something grabbed my shoulder. A firm, cold grip. I spun, raising the pepper spray. No one was there. The path was empty, silent, but the weight of that hand, it lingered, icy on my skin. I stood frozen, trembling, until my survival instinct finally screamed, "Run!" I sprinted out of the Grove, lungs burning, tears stinging my eyes. I didn't stop until I slammed into the back door of Dunkin, fumbling for my key with shaking hands. When Jace, my coworker, opened it from inside, he blinked at me. "Jesus, Maya, you look like you saw a ghost," I forced a laugh. "Something like that." I didn't tell him. Not that day. Who would believe me? But I never walked through the grove again. The next morning I took the long way, extra blocks of cracked sidewalk under the buzzing overpass lights. Safer. Except, even there, I found myself turning, listening, waiting for footsteps that never came. A few days later, I finally told Jace what happened. He didn't laugh. He just got quiet and said, "Yeah, don't go through those woods." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "My sister," he said. "She saw something there last winter. Said a man followed her, but not like normal. Said he didn't walk right. She turned around and he was closer, barefoot, in the snow." "Barefoot?" He nodded. "She only told me once. Never talked about it again." After that, I started asking around, quietly. Other employees, delivery drivers, even our manager. Everyone had their own version. A woman swore she heard someone whisper her name. A guy said he saw a child standing motionless on the bench at 4:45 a.m. A driver claimed he saw a shadow in the trees that didn't move with the wind. Different stories, but one thing was the same. It always happened early, alone, in the grove. It's been almost a year now. I moved to a smaller apartment closer to Oakwood Avenue, just to avoid walking past those woods. But every night, when I take the trash out behind Dunkin, I find myself staring toward the tree line. I can't see the bench from here, but sometimes when the wind dies and the night feels too still, I swear I feel it. That same cold hand on my shoulder, that sense of something waiting. And I know one thing for certain. If the grove ever calls me back, I won't make it out a second time. Story 4. I never thought my life would shrink down to neon lights, stale coffee, and the hum of refrigerators. But that's where I ended up, working the overnight shift at a Dunkin Donuts on the edge of a town nobody cares about. My name is Ethan Ward, 24 years old, born and raised in Redfield, Ohio, a place so ordinary you could drive through it in 3 minutes and forget it ever existed. But for me, Redfield was home, or at least the ruins of what used to be home. When my mom died of lung cancer 2 years ago, things fell apart fast. My dad had already been gone, left when I was 11. So after the funeral, I moved in with my cousin Laura, the only family member who picked up the phone when I called. She was 35, worked as an office clerk for the county, and had one of those tidy ranch-style houses just outside town. She didn't sugarcoat things when she let me stay. "You can have the spare room," she told me the night I moved in, my duffel bag at my feet. "But I'm not your mom, Ethan. You pay your own way, and you don't bring trouble into my house. Deal?" "Deal," I said, though my voice cracked. And that was that. To cover rent and food, I picked up the graveyard shift at Dunkin, midnight to 8 a.m., 5 nights a week. Not glamorous, but it was steady, and at the time I told myself it was temporary. Just enough to stack a few paychecks and eventually get back to community college. My Dunkin sat off Route 19, tucked between a gas station and an abandoned video rental store with boards over the windows. The kind of place truckers pulled into at 3 a.m., where you'd see a mix of cops on break, shift nurses with hollow eyes, and the occasional drunk kid demanding munchkins. The shift was predictable. 12 a.m. to 2 a.m., late night rush, nurses, warehouse workers, and couples ending bar nights. 2 a.m. to 4 a.m., dead hours. Maybe 1 or 2 cars at the drive-thru. That was mop the floor, restock the shelves, stare at the clock time. 4 a.m. to 6 a.m., truckers, long-haul drivers, cops. 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. The morning crowd started trickling in, and the day crew relieved me. My co-workers rotated, but most nights it was just me. The quiet didn't bother me, at least not at first. It was a Tuesday at 3:14 a.m. when I first saw her. I just finished swapping trays of glazed donuts near the front window. I leaned against the counter, sipping the dregs of my 4th coffee, when something in the reflection made me freeze. A woman, standing outside. She was pale, her hair long and stringy, clinging to her face like wet ropes. Her features were blurred by the glass, but what struck me was the stillness. She wasn't moving, not even swaying in the wind. I spun around. Nothing. The parking lot was empty, lit only by the flickering streetlight near the dumpster. I laughed at myself, muttered, "Too much caffeine," and went back to stacking trays. But the unease stayed with me. The next night, same time, 3 a.m. sharp, I caught her again. This time she was closer to the drive-thru, head tilted, like she was listening to something. I rushed outside, adrenaline buzzing, but again, nothing. Just the chill air, the smell of exhaust, and the silence of an empty lot. By the third night, when I saw her reflection standing almost flush against the glass, I stopped laughing it off. I finally mentioned it to Chris, the evening shift guy who clocked out before me. "Dude," I said while tying my apron, "you ever notice anyone hanging around out back at night? Like, a woman?" Chris raised an eyebrow. He was 30, heavy-set, and had that world-weary sarcasm baked into his voice. "A woman? Out here? At 3 a.m.? Bro, if she's hanging around, she's either lost, crazy, or looking to rob you." "Why?" I hesitated. "I keep seeing her reflection. Long hair. Just standing there," Chris snorted. "Sleep deprivation, man. This job messes with your head. One time I swore the coffee pot whispered my name. Don't stress it. As long as she's not busting in with a knife, let her stare." I tried to laugh along, but his words didn't help. 2 nights later, something else happened. I was mopping the back hall when a small white cat slipped in through the delivery door I'd propped open for air. She was filthy, her fur clumped gray with dirt, but her eyes were bright. Too bright, like glass marbles. "Hey there, little one," I murmured, crouching. She mewed, cautious but desperate, and I felt something in my chest soften. I poured a splash of milk into a cup, set it down. She drank, then curled up under my stool by the register and stayed the rest of the night. By dawn, when I packed up, I couldn't leave her, so I carried her home in my hoodie pocket. Laura was standing in the kitchen when I came in, hair pinned back, coffee in hand. She eyed the bundle in my arms. "Tell me that's not what I think it is." "It's just a cat," I said quickly. "She's a stray." I couldn't leave her in the cold. "Ethan," she sighed, rubbing her forehead. "Strays carry fleas, worms, God knows what else. You can't just—" "I'll take her to the vet tomorrow," I promised. "She's sweet, I swear." Laura studied the cat. The little thing blinked up at her, utterly calm. "She gives me the creeps," Laura muttered. "What?" "She hasn't even moved exactly, but she didn't fight me more." I set the cat on the carpet, where she immediately sat and began licking her paw in silence. I named her Snowball. Don't ask me why, it just fit. Snowball became my anchor. Coming home to her purr made the night shifts bearable. But Laura never warmed up. One evening while washing dishes, Laura said, "She watches me." Even when I sleep, I chuckled. "Cats are curious." "No, Ethan. She's calculating." I brushed it off, but her words stuck. Then came the Wednesday morning I'll never forget. I came home bone-tired at 7:45. Laura's car was still in the driveway, odd since she usually left by 7:30. Inside, the house was silent. Too silent. "Laura," I called, no answer. I found her bedroom door shut and locked. She never locked it. My chest tightened. After fumbling with a screwdriver, I popped the lock. The smell hit first, stale, damp, like a flooded basement. Laura lay in bed, eyes wide open, mouth ajar, body stiff as wax. "Laura!" I rushed forward. Her chest rose faintly. She was alive but unresponsive. At the foot of the bed sat Snowball, tail curled neatly, watching. I called 911. When paramedics lifted her, Laura gasped violently, coughing, as if she'd been held underwater. "What happened?" I asked, clutching her hand. She whispered, "Something was heavy." 2 nights later, after she insisted she was fine, I woke up around 3:07 a.m. The air felt wrong. Someone was in my bed. I turned and nearly screamed. Laura lay beside me, eyes wide open, smiling faintly. "What the hell, Laura?" I yelped, stumbling up. "I just wanted to be near you," she said softly. Her voice wasn't right, slower, flatter. "What are you talking about?" "You're kind, Ethan. You gave me milk. You let me in." I froze. "What?" Her head tilted unnaturally. "I'm not Laura." My stomach dropped. She sat up. Laura was dying inside, weak. I took the space. "You're insane," I whispered. "No," she said calmly. "I'm something older than sanity. You wouldn't understand." She raised her hand. My body seized, paralyzed mid-step. "Sleep now," she whispered. The world went black. I woke in my bed, morning sunlight spilling in. Laura was gone. No note, no car, no trace. I called the police, filed a missing persons report. They asked about mental health, about drugs. I told them pieces of the truth, left out the paralysis, left out, "I'm not Laura." Days later, I hired a private investigator, Maya Delaney. Sharp, no nonsense. After a week, she called me. "Your cousin's phone hasn't pinged since that Wednesday. Her car was last seen near Brookfield. But Ethan," she hesitated, "your house camera caught something odd." She sent me the footage. Grainy but clear. Laura, or something wearing her, walking barefoot out the front door at 2:57 a.m., cradling Snowball in her arms. She looked up at the camera, smiled, then walked into the woods. Neither of them were ever seen again. It's been 8 months. I left Dunkin, moved towns, tried to start fresh, but sometimes, working late nights at the new diner, I catch something outside around 3 a.m. A pale figure, a flash of white fur. Not quite human, not quite animal, just watching, waiting. And every time I wonder, did I invite it in? Story 5, I was 8 the year it happened. 8 years old and still at that age where fear feels like a game. Something you laugh off when the lights come back on. But that fall, I learned the difference between being spooked and being truly terrified. The kind of scare that seeps into your bones and doesn't leave, even after decades. We had just moved to Ridgewood Lane in Ashford, New York, a quiet suburb about 40 minutes outside Albany. The kind of place with maple trees turning orange in October, tidy lawns, and neighbors who waved when you drove by. My parents thought the move would give us a fresh start, a safer place to raise me and my little sister Lily, who was 6 at the time. Dad had picked up a maintenance job at the local high school, steady pay with benefits. Mom took evening shifts at the Dunkin Donuts right off Route 42, near the highway exit. It was a small store, orange and pink sign glowing through the fog, the smell of coffee and glazed donuts clinging to her uniform when she got home. Sometimes, if she worked mornings, I'd sit in the corner booth with a hot chocolate while she rang up customers. I loved that. But her schedule changed a lot, and most nights she didn't get home until just before bedtime. That fall, the town looked like something off a postcard. Porches lined with hay bales, fake cobwebs in the bushes, plastic skeletons slumped in rocking chairs. Halloween was only a few days away, and Mom had brought home 3 big pumpkins from a farm stand on her way back from Dunkin. We decided to carve them on Friday night. It was tradition. Dad laid down newspapers on the kitchen table, and the 4 of us dug in with those cheap plastic carving kits. Mine ended up with sharp, angled eyes and a jagged grin. "Looks like it's planning to eat someone," Dad teased, ruffling my hair. Lily's pumpkin was the opposite. Triangle eyes, a crooked smile, the kind of goofy face only a 6-year-old could be proud of. She held it up and laughed. "See, mine's friendly. Yours is mean." "Yours looks like it works at the bank," I shot back, and she giggled so hard she almost dropped it. By the time we were done, it was after 8. Wheel of Fortune had just started in the living room, and Mom was packing the donuts she'd brought home for Dad. She told us to set the pumpkins outside before brushing our teeth. I remember the air was sharp when we opened the front door. Leaves scraped along the driveway in the wind. That's when I saw him, a man, standing at the edge of our driveway, where the porch light didn't quite reach. At first I thought maybe it was a neighbor, but he wasn't moving, just standing there. His shoulders slouched, head tilted down slightly, like he was waiting for something. He wore a dark brown jacket, maybe corduroy, and a knit cap pulled low. In his hands he carried a bag, but I couldn't see what was inside. "Who's that?" Lily whispered, clutching her pumpkin. I didn't answer. I just stared. The second he realized we were looking, he moved, but not the way I expected. He didn't back away toward the street. He ran, fast, right toward the side of our house, past the hedge near the garage. Lily yelped and nearly dropped her pumpkin. We bolted back inside, slamming the door. Mom came rushing from the kitchen, donut box in her hands. "What happened?" "There was a man," I said breathlessly, "in the driveway." He ran around the house. Her face went pale. She called down for Dad, who came up from the basement with a flashlight. He slipped on his jacket and stormed out through the garage. We huddled by the window, watching the beam of his light sweep across the lawn. 10 minutes later, he came back in, annoyed but not scared. "Nobody's out there. Probably some kid trying to scare you." Mom didn't look convinced, but she forced a smile. "Come on, let's set your pumpkins out and lock up for the night." We placed them on the steps. Mine on the left, Lily's on the right, the goofy one leaning against the mean one, like siblings. That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, picturing that man standing in the shadows. Not just there, but waiting. The next morning, Mom was on the phone with the police. I came downstairs to hear her voice sharp and scared. "What happened?" I asked. Dad rubbed the back of his neck. "Someone smashed the basement window. Kicked in the doorframe. Didn't take anything. Just damage." My stomach dropped. "What about the pumpkins?" He sighed and pointed to the front window. I pulled the blinds back. Both pumpkins were gone. Not just knocked over, obliterated. Shards smeared across the concrete. The police came, asked questions, wrote notes. They had me and Lily describe the man, but I could tell they didn't think much of it. "Probably some Halloween prank," the officer said. "Keep your doors locked. Call us if anything else happens." That was it. Halloween came and went without trick-or-treating. Dad wasn't in the mood. Lily cried at night, clutching her stuffed rabbit, saying she didn't want to see the shadow man again. Mom started carrying pepper spray on her keychain, but the real nightmare didn't come until a week later. It was a Tuesday. Mom worked a closing shift at Dunkin, so it was just Dad, Lily, and me. Around 9:30, the doorbell rang. I was closest, so I ran to get it. When I opened the door, no one was there. But on the porch, sitting in the exact spot where our pumpkins had been, was a single, perfect pumpkin. Round, smooth, uncarved. At first I thought maybe a neighbor dropped it off, but then I saw the note taped to the door. It was scribbled on a Dunkin napkin, the brown kind they gave out by the register. The letters were written in red ink, shaky but deliberate. "Yours smiled." That's why I left it for last. I froze. My throat locked up and the scream tore out of me before I even knew I was making it. Dad came running. He grabbed the note, read it, and swore under his breath. He yanked Lily away from the window before she could see. We called the police again. This time they dusted for prints, took the pumpkin, took the note. They even spoke to Mom's manager at Dunkin'. But nothing came of it. No arrests, no answers. That night, Dad slept with a hammer by the bed. Mom stayed in Lily's room. I stayed awake until dawn, certain that if I closed my eyes, the man from the driveway would be standing over me when I opened them again. It's been nearly 20 years since then. We moved 2 months later, changed our number. Dad found a new job in a different county. Mom quit Dunkin'. Lily never carved another pumpkin again. She won't even put one on her porch. Me, every October I sit on my porch with the lights on. I don't carve pumpkins either, not because I'm scared, but because I'm waiting, because one day I know he'll leave another, just to remind me he's still out there. Story 6, I never thought something as simple as a box of donuts would end up saving my life. Not in a metaphorical way, but in the literal blood-chilling, nightmare-inducing sense that I still wake up sweating about. For context, I'm 30 years old. My name is Ryan Adler, and until last spring, I worked at a mid-sized logistics company called Bright Path Solutions in a suburb just outside Raleigh, North Carolina. I'd only been there a few months, still the new guy, still figuring out people's names and where the printer kept jamming. It wasn't my dream job. I doubt anyone dreams of sifting through invoices and updating shipment records, but it paid the rent, came with health insurance, and had predictable hours. That alone felt like a win. My supervisor, Martha, was decent, the type of woman who asked about your weekend and actually listened to the answer. My direct manager, though, Kyle Donovan, was the opposite. An over-polished, always grinning guy who treated every conversation like a performance review. He had this way of reminding you that you weren't as important as you thought you were. I'd been late twice in my first month, and Kyle made me sit through a lecture about reliability being the bedrock of trust in logistics. He actually used those words. I walked out of his office feeling like I just committed some kind of moral crime. So when my alarm failed me that Friday morning, I already knew it was going to be bad. That day wasn't just any day, it was my turn to bring breakfast. Office tradition. Every Friday, someone grabbed bagels, muffins, or donuts on the way in. It sounds trivial, but in a place where people lived in Excel and Outlook, that 10-minute break in the morning was sacred. Coffee cups clinking, little paper plates, laughter that faded the second everyone went back to their cubicles. And after 2 months of feeling like I was already on thin ice with Kyle, I saw it as my chance to make a good impression. I even set 2 alarms the night before. Somehow I slept through both. By the time I shot out of bed, showered, and got into my car, it was 7:40. I had to be at the office by 8:30 sharp. The nearest Dunkin Donuts was 15 minutes away. On a good day, I gripped the steering wheel, heart hammering, rehearsing my order in my head. 2 dozen assorted, mostly glazed, a few chocolate frosted, at least a couple Boston Crims for Janice, because she always jokes about needing one before 9 a.m., or else. No coconut because Martha's allergic. I muttered the list like a prayer as I drove. When I pulled into the Dunkin' lot, the clock read 8:09. Tight, but manageable. That's when everything began to go wrong. The line inside was longer than I'd ever seen it. 9 people, easy. A couple in workout gear, 2 guys in suits scrolling on their phones. And then directly in front of me, a man who looked like he'd walked out of a DMV waiting room. Mid-50s, thinning hair, cheap navy puffer jacket. At first, he was just another stranger. Then he stepped up to the counter. "Let's see," he muttered, dragging the words out. "Do you still have those croissant things with cream cheese?" The cashier, a teenage girl with her hair pulled into a too-tight ponytail, nodded. "Yes, sir." "We've got a few left." He squinted at the overhead menu like it was written in code. "And the hash browns." "Fresh?" Her smile didn't move her eyes. "Same batch from this morning." He rubbed his chin. What about apple fritters? Still warm?" Behind him, I glanced at my phone. 8:14. "Come on." The girl checked the display. "Room temperature now." The man hummed thoughtfully. "Do you have cinnamon twist today?" She turned, scanned the rack. "One left." "I'll take that." "No, wait. The maple frosted thing. What's that again?" My blood pressure spiked. I leaned forward slightly and whispered, "Hey, sorry, but could you maybe hurry up a bit? I'm kind of running late for work." He turned toward me slowly. His face was blank, but his eyes narrowed in a way that made my stomach knot. "Then you should have gotten here earlier," he said flatly. "I just need 2 dozen donuts," I muttered. "I'll be gone in 30 seconds. He smirked, turned back to the cashier. "Yeah, well, I was here first." The cashier shot me a quick, apologetic glance before pretending she hadn't. Finally, mercifully, he settled on 3 donuts and a coffee. Relief washed through me until he pulled out a plastic grocery bag, full of quarters. "I've got it all right here," he announced proudly, dropping the bag onto the counter with a metallic clatter. The cashier's shoulders slumped. She started counting. 1 quarter, 2, 3. "No way," I muttered. I reached into my wallet, yanked out a $10 bill, and held it toward her. "Please, just use this." The man looked at me surprised. "You don't have to. Please," I said again. My voice cracked. He shrugged, muttered something I couldn't hear, and shuffled aside. The girl rang up his order with my bill. She handed me the change without looking up. 2 dozen assorted, I blurted. No coconut. Mix of glazed, chocolate, some jellies, a couple Boston creams if you got them. Fast as you can, please. She packed the boxes quickly, slid them across. My receipt fluttered against the counter. Just as I picked up the donuts, she said something under her breath. I froze. "Excuse me?" I asked. She looked up then, smiling too wide. Her eyes were wrong, empty, flat, like a doll's. "I said," she repeated brightly, "I hate you all." My skin prickled. "What?" The smile didn't falter. "Have a great day." I didn't respond. I just walked out, heart thudding. Outside, I slid into my car, balanced the boxes on the passenger seat, and started the engine. That's when I noticed The coin man's car was still parked directly in front of me, blocking the exit. I honked once. Nothing. I honked again, harder, still nothing. Frustrated, I got out and walked to his driver's side window. His head was slumped against the steering wheel. "Hey," I called. No movement. I knocked. "Sir?" His body shifted limply. His face lolled sideways. His skin was flushed red, eyes glassy. His lips were dusted with powdered sugar. He wasn't breathing. My stomach dropped. Then, his foot slipped off the brake. The car rolled forward, slow at first, then faster. I shouted, tried to grab the handle, but it was too late. The sedan coasted out of the lot and clipped the back of an SUV before smashing into a streetlight pole. Metal screeched, glass shattered, horns blared. I stood frozen in the lot, donuts in hand, the smell of sugar and exhaust thick in the air. Something was terribly wrong. I dropped the donuts onto the asphalt and ran back inside. The cashier's station was empty. The swinging door to the kitchen creaked slowly. I pushed through. A man lay face down on the tile floor in a real Dunkin uniform, middle-aged, heavyset. His arms were splayed out unnaturally. His shirt collar and apron were dusted with some kind of fine white powder. "Sir?" My voice shook. I crouched, pressed trembling fingers to his neck. No pulse. His skin was cold. The girl hadn't been an employee at all. She had poisoned the food. My food. I bolted outside, nearly slipping on the pavement, yanked open my car door, and hurled the donut boxes onto the ground. Frosting smeared across the asphalt. My hands shook violently as I fumbled for my phone. 911. "What's your emergency?" I tried to explain everything. The man in the car, the crash, the girl, the poisoned donuts. My voice cracked as I spoke, breath coming in ragged gasps. "Stay where you are," the dispatcher said calmly. "Units are on the way." I hung up and, against my better judgment, called my manager Kyle. He picked up immediately. "Ryan, where are you?" "You're late again." "There's been an emergency," I said, trying not to lose it. "Someone died at the Dunkin' I was at. The donuts. Someone poisoned them." "You realize this is unacceptable, right?" He cut in sharply. "First you're late, now you're spinning stories." "I just watched a man die," I shouted. "I'm not coming in." "Silence, then. Don't bother coming back at all." I hung up. Minutes later, police cars swarmed the lot. Then an ambulance. Then more questions than I had answers for. The medical examiner confirmed it later. Cyanide. Traces found in the frosting. Surveillance cameras had been disabled from the back. No one knew who the girl was. She didn't exist in any system. She had simply walked in, poisoned the food, and vanished. For weeks afterward, I barely slept. I couldn't shake the thought. If that man hadn't stalled me with his endless order, if he hadn't eaten one of those donuts first, I would have walked into my office smiling, set the boxes on the counter, and watched as every single one of my coworkers took a bite. They would have all been dead, and it would have been my fault. Sometimes survival doesn't feel like luck. It feels like guilt with a pulse. Story 7. I used to think nothing truly strange could happen in a place that smelled like fried dough, glaze, and burnt coffee. I thought horror belonged in movies, or on the news, or whispered about in those old backwoods. Campfire stories that always end with, "They say he still haunts those woods." Never in a Dunkin' Donuts. My name is Daniel Mercer, though most folks in town just call me Danny. I'm 25 now, but this happened 2 years ago, in the winter of 2022, just a couple of weeks before my 23rd birthday. At that time, I was living back home with my mom in Briar Ridge, Tennessee, a little mountain town most people only pass through on their way to Gatlinburg or Pigeon Forge. If you blink, you miss it. 2 churches, a gas station, a Family Dollar that always smelled faintly of bleach, and our Dunkin' sitting right on the curve of Highway 19. I never expected to end up back there. I'd been in Knoxville for college, studying communications. I thought maybe I'd go into PR or advertising, something that at least sounded like it could pay the bills. But then Dad died, sudden brain aneurysm, gone before the ambulance even arrived. And all my plans turned to smoke. Mom didn't take it well. She was always a little anxious, but after Dad passed, she barely slept. She'd sit in that old recliner by the window, lamp on, waiting for me every night like she was afraid the world might take me too. I'd tell her not to, that I'd be fine, but she never listened. So I dropped out, moved back, and took the night shift at Dunkin. Midnight to 8 a.m., 5 nights a week. It wasn't glamorous, but it kept the lights on and the fridge stocked. And for the first year, it was fine. Lonely sometimes, sure, but peaceful in its own way. Truckers rolling through, a few local teenagers sneaking out after curfew, a couple of deer hunters in camo grabbing black coffee before heading up into the hills. I'd clean the fryers, restock the shelves, maybe sneak a cruller when no one was looking. But the winter of 2022 was different. That was the year people started disappearing. At first, it was just hikers. Briar Ridge sits only half an hour from the Smokies, so people come all year. A family from Georgia lost their teenage son on a trail. Search and rescue combed the woods for 3 days before they found him wandering barefoot on a logging road, clothes torn, muttering about something in the trees. Then there was a couple from Kentucky. Park rangers found their car at a trailhead, but never found them. The sheriff told the papers it was winter exposure. Locals, though, we whispered, at the grocery store checkout, at the laundromat, in church pews, about something moving in the ridges at night, about the way the woods went quiet after dark, no owls, no crickets, nothing. I brushed it off. That was mountain stuff, as folks like to say. Not my problem. I worked at a donut shop. What the hell did I have to be afraid of? Turns out, everything. That night was dead quiet. The roads were slick and snow from Christmas Eve still clung to the sidewalks in dirty frozen mounds. I remember the parking lot lights made the snowfall sparkle like glitter scattered on black velvet. At 12:52 a.m., the door chime dinged. I looked up, expecting a trucker or a couple of kids. Instead, it was a girl. She looked about 15, pale, thin, hair hanging damp and stringy around her face. She wore a gray hoodie at least 2 sizes too big and jeans soaked to the knees. Her sneakers, white Keds, were soaked through, laces trailing, and yet she wasn't shivering. That's what I remember most. She wasn't shivering. "Hey there," I said, trying to sound casual. "Cold night, huh? What can I get started for you?" She didn't answer, just walked up to the counter and stared at the display case like she was trying to remember what food was. I glanced at the security monitor above the register. She'd tracked in snow, but outside, no headlights, no footprints leading up to the door, just hers, faint, half frozen, like she'd been walking for miles. "You all right?" I asked, throat tight. Her eyes flicked up, but not to meet mine, more like past me, unfocused. Her lips moved, at first no sound. Then, in a whisper that cut straight through me, she said, "He's coming down the mountain." I froze. "What was that?" She didn't answer, just turned slowly and walked toward the corner booth by the window, the one facing the tree line at the edge of town. I hesitated, then grabbed a cruller from the rack, wrapped it in a napkin, and carried it over. "Here," I said gently. "It's fresh. You hungry?" She didn't look at me, just pointed out the window. I followed her finger. The woods beyond the parking lot looked normal, just shadows, branches heavy with snow. But then I saw it. Something moved between the trees. Not a deer, not a bear. Something upright. It darted between trunks too fast, too sharp. Its movement was wrong. Like a video glitch, skipping frames, jerking in ways the human body couldn't. My chest tightened. Are you being followed?" The girl's lips quivered. She whispered, barely audible. "He never left." "Who?" I pressed. Her eyes brimmed with tears. "I was with my brother. 3 days ago. We were hiking. I ran. I didn't look back." The words had barely left her mouth when the Dunkin' lights flickered. Once, twice. Then the parking lot went dark. The neon Dunkin' sign out front buzzed, sputtered, and died. The hum of the refrigerators cut out. Silence dropped over the store like a suffocating blanket. My stomach dropped. I bolted behind the counter and grabbed my phone. No signal, no Wi-Fi. The router lights were dead. I looked at the CCTV monitor. Camera 3, the one facing the lot, showed a tall, thin shape standing just beyond the reach of the snow glow. It wasn't a man. It was too tall. limbs too long, arms hanging low like it was built for crawling. Its head was pale, featureless, tilted slightly like it was listening. The girl backed into the booth, clutching her knees, rocking. "He waits for the ones who run," she whispered. "I shouldn't have come here." I grabbed her hand. "We need to go." "You need help." "I can't go back out there," she whispered. "You don't have to. Just come to the office. We'll lock the door, okay?" She nodded weakly, and I guided her to the small office in the back. Locked it. My hands were shaking. The monitor still glowed faintly. Backup power running. That's when I saw it. Camera 1. The front counter. The shape was inside. It dragged itself across the tile, arms scraping, limbs bending wrong. Head tilted, turning slowly toward the booths. The girl covered her ears and sobbed silently. "It never leaves the mountains," she said. "But sometimes people bring it down." The monitor fizzed to static. A slam rattled the office door. Once, twice. Then a long scraping sound like fingernails, impossibly long, dragging down the wood. The cold hit then. Not just surface cold, deep, marrow cold. The kind that seeps into your bones. And then, silence. Total silence. I didn't open that door until sunrise. When I did, the store was spotless. No snow tracked in, no damage to the door, no girl. I checked the cameras. Static after midnight. I called the sheriff, reported everything. They searched the woods, found nothing. No missing girl, no tracks, no signs of anyone. They told me I was exhausted, grieving, seeing things. 2 weeks later, I quit. A year later, the Dunkin shut down. The building still stands, boarded up, paint peeling, weeds choking the lot. Teenagers dare each other to break in. They don't know what waits in those woods. But I do. Every time I see snow dusting the ridges of the Smokies, I remember the face I never saw, and the girl who was never reported missing. Story 8. Rain had been hammering against the roof all night, drumming a relentless rhythm that rattled the neon "Open 24 Hours" sign above the Dunkin Donuts on the corner of Main Street in Riverbend. I remember the smell first, wet asphalt and the faint, sour tinge of mold coming from the cracked walls of the building. My name is Ethan Caldwell, and I was 25 at the time. I'd taken the night shift at Riverbend Dunkin after college dropped me like a stone. Not literally, but every plan I'd made, my degree in accounting, my dream of moving to Cleveland, crumbled after a brutal breakup and mounting student debt. Riverbend wasn't my choice, but it was cheap, and the job paid just enough to keep me above water. The Dunkin itself was tired. Fluorescent lights buzzed faintly, peeling paint streaked the walls, and the bathrooms had been out of commission for months. The outhouse in the back, a rickety wooden shack Ron, our manager, called a temporary solution, creaked under every raindrop that hit it. I clocked in at 11 p.m., expecting the usual night. A handful of truckers, a lonely teenager with energy drinks, and the occasional couple looking for a sugar high at 2 a.m. My coworker, Jenna, had called out because her son had a fever. That left me alone behind the counter. Ron was supposed to check in occasionally, but he never did unless the health inspector threatened to show up. I was wiping down the countertop at 4:05 a.m., humming to drown the sound of the storm, when the first customers arrived. "Bathroom?" asked a girl with platinum blonde hair plastered to her face. She was about 17, rain dripping off her hoodie, eyes wide with a mix of embarrassment and urgency. Yeah, the outhouse is back there," I said, pointing behind the dumpster. My voice cracked slightly. I wasn't sure why I was nervous. "It's kinda temporary." She frowned. "Temporary?" "Yeah," I said, forcing a laugh. "It's safer when it's not raining. Bring a flashlight if you have one." Her friends shuffled closer, whispering. One muttered, "It's fine, let's just go." They disappeared into the storm, their laughter muffled and brittle. I shook my head. Kids never listened. By 4:30 a.m., the wind had shifted, sharp and slicing, rattling the dumpster lids. I heard it again. A low metal-on-metal groan coming from the alley. It didn't sound natural. I stepped outside, my hoodie plastered to my skin. "Probably just the dumpster," I muttered, though my stomach sank. Then came the scream. It tore through the storm like glass. High-pitched, terrified, cutting through the wind. I dropped the rag I was holding and sprinted to the back. The outhouse door was swinging violently, nearly torn off its hinges. "Oh my God! Help!" I froze, seeing her, a small girl clinging to the frame. "They fell! They fell in!" she screamed. I stammered. Who fell?" "The floor! The floor's gone!" I looked down into the pit below. The entire wooden floor had collapsed into a concrete vault below, half filled with rainwater and sewage. 4 girls were clawing at the walls, slick with filth, trying to keep their heads above water. One was already submerged up to her neck, thrashing in panic. "No! Hold on, I'm coming!" I yelled. My boots slipped on the mud. I ran back into the store, grabbing a mop handle and an extension cord. I tied the cord around the handle, creating a makeshift lifeline. I returned to the pit. 2 girls had locked together, sliding beneath the surface, gasping. The one still clinging to the door sobbed, "Do something! Please! Grab this!" I shouted, thrusting the stick down. One small girl latched onto it, fingers white with effort. I pulled her up, slipping, rain soaking me through. Another girl grabbed my hand and helped drag her clear. By the time I had rescued 2 more, I realized the 5th girl wasn't moving. Her face was pale, blank. I couldn't see her eyes through the muck, and my stomach turned. I hesitated for a split second before jumping in with the rope, splashing through the rainwater and filth. I felt her, weak, almost weightless, and hauled her toward the edge. By then my arms burned, my legs were slick with mud, and I was trembling uncontrollably. The storm seemed endless, a wall of cold rain and screaming girls. Finally, sirens. Paramedics arrived 40 minutes later, drenched, struggling with stretchers and ladders. 2 girls still needed careful extraction. They pulled 1 more, barely conscious. The 5th, Maya Turner, 16, was floating face down. I can't describe the silence after that, the sick, sticky quiet in the air where the screams had been. The storm had slowed, and I sat on the curb, shaking, rainwater mixing with tears. Ron tried to shift blame, as expected. "They shouldn't have been back there," he said. But we all knew the truth. The shack was rotten, the foundation cracked, and he had ignored it for months. The county shut the Dunkin down. Health inspectors cited every violation. Ron lost his license. I left Riverbend by the end of October. Took a gas station job 20 miles away, somewhere quieter, somewhere normal. But normal never returned completely. Every storm since, when the wind cuts through and the night feels too heavy, I hear her voice. I see the pit. I see the way Maya's eyes were empty yet peaceful. And I remember the smell, wet dirt, rain, and fear mixed with something far worse. I never wanted to be a hero. I just wanted to survive. But some mornings, some storms, make you a witness whether you want it or not. Thank you so much for your love in watching the video, and I truly appreciate you for liking and subscribing.